3D and 4D.
All right. Before I get started on the pluses, I think what we realized right away, and I think the multidimensional guys realized right away, is we wanted to define the Ds. Because we said, there's really 2.5D data. Seafloor can be considered 2.5D until you do surface differences and get a volume. Water column you can consider 3D. And then really 4D is we're talking multivariable data, so n-dimensional data, not just time, but not also just a data source, but the ability to visualize those multiple dimensions. Instead of just a position or a position moving over time, a position, a size, a color, a blinky, whatever. So the Ds, we need to be clear on that because it's more than just 3D, 4D. So the pluses, I think this ties in from yesterday. We can still do this. ArcGIS brings us the ability to visualize complex data sets. And thank you so much to Karen for her great handwriting. Sorry, Emilio. Number 2, handling of data sets, native handling of data sets, NetCDF, which a lot of you guys use, but now for us in the hydrography world, native LiDAR support and native bag support is a big plus. Third one, and these are in no particular order, QA/QC for making geophysical data and water column data. So this is like getting, we can get data into the system, we can get some water column data into the system, and we can do some QA/QC of marine geophysical data in ArcGIS. Time slider, yay, for a lot of the folks that are dealing with time. That's in there. That's a big plus for our, if you think of 4D as simply 3 dimensions in time. Also tracking. So all you guys that are saying ARC can't track, we learned from our Esri colleagues that ARC can track. So there's tracking analysts. There's other capabilities so that you can track particles. We can, for those of us that track animals or just different objects with attributes over time. We stuck this as a plus because I think people should realize that this is a plus for us in the community, having Don and Tim Kearns. Basically having our insiders that are looking out for our community's interests is a big plus, and we didn't want to let that go unnoted. All right, minuses. We had a huge list, but we boiled it down to this. As always, usability issues, and you guys, I think the other folks already hammered on this. Knowing if a tool exists. So I think we've all said it now. Probably the next 2 will say it. Is we've been in these breakout groups and we say, hey, we can't do this in ARC, and one of the Esri folks goes, yeah, you can, and it's buried somewhere. So having the ability to find out where that capability exists. And the forums and all the stuff that Don mentioned that's coming on will hopefully help alleviate that. Volumetric displays and analysis. So now we're moving into the 3D, 4D realm. There's a couple of things in being able to display volumetric data and also to do analysis on that data. Emilio mentioned better integration with MATLAB because there's a lot of scientists that are doing their own analysis using MATLAB. And for us, extracting isosurfaces directly within ARC instead of having, maybe Fledermaus do it and have to push it in, but do that directly within ARC. Number 3, so this is a shout out to Rich, handling irregular grids and curvilinear data structures. We all remembered it, but we didn't quite remember what exactly they were, but they were needed in 4D, so we wanted to make sure that got in. And this was a great term that came from one of the Esri folks. Where is she? Yeah, I mean, this was a great term, enhancing exploratory visualization. So how this came about was Brian was talking about how in certain applications, the ability, like in Fleeter Mouse, to, you have a hydrographic surface and you can draw out a profile and move the profile around. That type of process-based interaction, having those capabilities within ARC, even doing these kind of things on the 2D map, but having other displays, before we get to being able to also do these in 3D. Some of the 3D examples were cutting through volumetric data, but instead of just the typical XYZ planes, is having arbitrary planes cut through these volumes. Brian also mentioned hill shading enhancements. There's a tool that he uses that's really handy, and I've seen hydrographers do this, is where you'll have a bathymetric map, but if you move the sun location around, you can, it'll expose features that you may not have seen due to where you had your sun position when you did your sun illumination. So being able to do that in real time, move it around and see the updates, can help you explore and find issues within your data, which had to do with the lighting azimuth. And then, dynamically playing around with vertical exaggeration. So these were all, we call these, it's kind of a new way to process data, not traditional processing, but more this interactive exploratory. That's a great, trademark that. The other bit was interactive profiling. This is what I was talking about that Brian said, is doing not just a single profile across the surface, but multi-segment. So, somebody wants to lay a pipeline route like Karen does when she does her planning for cables. You're laying down a vector and you want to see the profile from that, and then potentially also being able to see the differences between two surfaces, so see that as a plotted profile, and then also having it calculate slope for you at each of the points, or being able to see the slope at any of those points. So it kind of ties into interactive, but it's specific to profiling. And of course, not just a straight line. We want to do the multi-segment. Any questions so far?
On the integration with MATLAB, I just want to let you know that the MGET tools, at least 3 or 4 of the tools we have online right now, do call MATLAB, and either license MATLAB or the runtime MATLAB file, program. So we already have been making progress on doing that.
All right, so there's hope for MATLAB people, which is great. Points of interest. This was I apologize for this, but this just came in out of nowhere. Add domains to user badges. This is the one thing I remember at the Esri user conference, is that we're there with 15,000 other people, and I know that conference people love to do this kind of stuff, but I remember one year they had the ask me about thing, but I thought, hey, wouldn't it be interesting if we could recognize each other by our badge as to what domain we're in, so then to help build this community thing. Kind of a weird point of interest, but a random thought. Yeah. This came up from our Microsoft colleague. This was a great idea. Is connection machinery needed? Basically, kind of on the lines of an extension, but being able to connect easily to external visualization engines. So having that capability, if there was some way to bring that in, because there's a lot of viz engines out there. Some of them do very specific things, but if you could bring those in and have them work with ARC easier, that would be beneficial. So that was not a need that it needed to do, but a really interesting point of interest. Then somebody said, hey, can bag data be used in 3D in ARC scene? It was a point of interest, and I thought we'd toss it. It's a yes? Okay, so okay, good, excellent. And then we hammered on this yesterday, I think, so Don's going to have this, heard this a lot, is domain-specific use cases. We went over this again. Brian brought up things that he was working on, and it was another one of those examples that, oh yeah, ARC does that, and if you just chain these things together. So I think we all see that there's a need to have domain-specific use cases for us so that we don't waste any time trying to find out what to do, or think that ARC can't do this when really it can. And it sounds like you're building this, Dawn, is a forum to ask better questions, so get more interesting questions. And then we had talked about lightning webinars to address specific questions and potentially even little mini how-tos that come from the community. So they're not just necessarily folks from Esri, not that we don't like seeing demos from folks from Esri, but if you see your colleague up there and he's doing a demo on a specific ARC capability, you may be more apt to watch it and learn about this new capability. So we thought that was another interesting point of interest. And that was it from the 3D 4D group. Any questions?
Hi, I was just going to mention, I think some people already know about this, but the EBM Tools Network does provide a webinar forum that's been pretty heavily used by some people here.
What's it called again?
EBM Tools Network, ebmtools.org, and we host a number of webinars specifically in coastal marine tools, discipline topics. And there's a website. It's actually one of the websites linked to from the ocean resource page.
Okay, good.
And the past webinars are recorded and they're available to search.
All right. Next. Thanks.